Well, greetings, friends. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach and one of the hosts of this program, Soul Empowerment. Today, our topic title is Why Bother? And of course, we always tend to do things a little bit tongue in cheek because we know that there's actually always a reason for everything we do. But the whole why bother thing is about what happens when the ego mind gets in play and you start asking yourself questions like, why am I doing this? What's the point? Why am I bothering? It seems like nothing I do gets appreciated. You know, all this kind of stuff happens and our ego minds kind of get in play. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And one of the things that we can talk about is how to overcome that question, and maybe not overcome it in the sense of disallowing it from happening in your mind, but rather overcoming it in the sense of coming up with a real answer. Why should I bother? And maybe justifying some of the choices that you make. But before we go there and get into this obviously amazing topic, I'm going to ask my co-hosts to introduce themselves. And I have no idea. I'm going to just point, and my finger goes to you, Scott. So you can start today. Tell us who you are, where you are, what you do, and why.
Hey everybody, Scott Holmes from Boston, Massachusetts. I am a intuitive um, healer. Sometimes I use that term, sometimes I don't, depending on the day, only because of the last client I had. When things go well with clients, and they come to me to do any kind of Reiki, polarity, theta, et al. It when they come out of the session and they have that revelation, when they have that understanding, when they have that grounding, when they feel better, when they have a better understanding of themselves, that's when I feel like, yes, I can help them. And in talking with these three marvelous people, you too will find answers, perhaps, to the questions you don't even know you have.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. And I was going to say, it sounds like sometimes you may have that very question. Why am I bothering this? Yeah, great. That's good. So you've got some examples of how this might work for you. Next, I'm going to ask Sara. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you are, what you do, and why.
Hi, I'm Sarah Jane. You can call me Sarah though. I'm in the UK in a not so little place called Bournemouth on the south coast. What do I do? What do I do? That's always a good question. I'm a complementary health therapist, mainly working with energy, and that includes Reiki and sound. I channel a lot. I channel dragons and many mythical beings. I channel light language. The sound I channel, the Reiki I obviously channel. And I find actually I'm channeling quite a lot. Have you ever had that situation where you've read back something you've written and you think, did I really write that? Is that because I just think, really? There's a great deal of wisdom in that.
That's right.
But not that I'm blowing my own trumpet. It's just, and so it's trusting what comes to us, through us, from our higher self.
Right.
Why do I do it? Because I love it. It's great. Right. Yeah. I feel I'm here not only to help people myself, to touch the lives I'm meant to touch. And that's why putting it out there is so good, doing programs like this. But I'm also here to help others to share for themselves their wisdom. So again, doing programs like this and on my own that will be following almost immediately after this, that's why I do it. Because it's about touching the lives of people. What you're looking for is out there because people like ourselves put it out there for you to find.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and I definitely resonate with discovering something I wrote some time ago and kind of getting my head knocked off and saying, wow, that's really brilliant. Did I actually write that? Mm-hmm. Well, so that's, I think, an example of something that we all have that experience. I'm pretty sure. I think that's a universal experience. So whenever you recognize something that you've done from the past and you see the wisdom in it, take that as a message from spirit that you should be paying attention to it, and maybe paying attention to even more stuff that you're perhaps not watching quite as closely. Anyway, thank you, Sara. I'm glad you're here. Ilene, tell us who you are, where you are, what you do, and why.
Well, I'm Ilene Dillon. I'm a psychotherapist. I also am have developed a system I call realigning with emotions, which is working with emotions the way they're designed to work for us. I'm currently in Northern California in my RV, and I'm recalling, based on what you guys have said, that at the turn of this century, a friend of mine who was a very fine channel of Hilarion, a lot of therapists got together and went to him and said, we want to help the people the best we can coming into this new century. Tell us, guru, or Hilarion, what to do. And the answer came back very plain. Said, oh, it's so wonderful that you want to help people, but we need to be clear with you that the reason anybody comes to be a therapist is for their own growth. And if somebody else benefits, that's gravy, but that's not the main reason.
That's
and
right.
So just to segue off of what you were saying, Sara, I think we're all here to help each other grow. And the way I look at it for myself, we have the privilege of being able to focus on it more than other people.
Right. Yeah, beautiful. And right you are. We're here primarily to do our own work and to get clarity on our own purpose in this world. But in doing that, we often find wisdom that can benefit other people. And that's where, as Sara was saying, and I think as Scott said too, sharing it with other people. This is not, it's not like that truth is just mine and I'm supposed to, what's it, my precious, that character from the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit or whatever, trying to hoard stuff. That's not the point. The point is to share it out as much as we can. And that's what we do here, And one of the things I want to share with you today is that I finally got my brand new book published. It's called The Tree of Life Mastery. It's now available. There's 2 volumes. There's the Wisdom of the Tree, Volume 1, which is the big volume. And then Volume 2 is the Magnificence Journal. So both of these books are available on Amazon. You can go check them out, and I hope you will. Oh, look at that. Sara has got a physical copy. How beautiful is that? And I'm so glad. That's Volume 1, I take it. Let me see how thick that is.
Yeah.
It's a big book, 500 and some pages. But, all of these folks here contributed to my book, and they contributed what I'm calling a guest expert vignette to cover one aspect of the topic of a particular chapter. And that what they wrote was absolutely beautiful. I'm so delighted to have that there. Anyway, enough of all that. We're here to talk about this question that is on everybody's mind: why bother? So I guess I remember when we had our conversation about this in our planning conversation, there were a lot of things that came up when we were tossing ideas back and forth, and it took a while for the title of this one to come up. So, Scott, what did it mean to you when we came up with this why bother idea? How does that resonate for you, and how does it show up in your life?
For anybody who's had an idea, who says, I really want to do this. I really want to do this project. And David, we've had these discussions and about things that we want to get done, and men's groups we wanted to start in different aspects we wanted to start in, all of these things. And when you get hit over the head time and time and time again with the no, it's a good idea, you feel it's a good idea, everything in you says this is a great idea, and yet people look at you like, nah, it's okay. And it makes you wonder, am I delusional? Am I not thinking right? Am I just excited because it was my idea? But the funny thing is that when you're in the same vibration, and David, we've had many discussions this way, in particular about, yes, it makes sense. Yes, it's right. And yet it can never get any traction. And you go, yeah, why am I banging my head against the wall? And there have been so many times in my life when, the only time I felt good was when I stopped banging my head against the wall, when I stopped trying to force things.
Yeah.
And it's that, why bother? And usually the answer is listen, is to take that one step back, listen, stop banging your head against the wall, and be able to hear, be able to see it. Sometimes the ego mind says, "Hey, this is a great idea. You'll make millions," and you say, "Oh, that'd be wonderful." And yet, really, is it in alignment? Does it really? Am I forcing all of this? And most of my life, I tried to force those things. I tried to force what I thought I should do, that I thought other people should do.
Right.
And life became much more clearer, much simpler when I took the step back and allowed.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, isn't it? It's like you talked about banging your head against the wall, and I know that a lot of people have had that experience. It seems like there's this huge obstacle here, and I can't get over it, under it, around it, or even through it. Um, and sometimes the answer is to just take a breath, like you say, pause, relax, maybe stop, and see what happens. And sometimes another wall will appear, or sometimes a door or a window will show up. Or maybe you'll get a completely different message that says detour, go this way, follow a slightly different path. So, but you're right. I think the secret is you gotta pay attention. The fact that you've got this great idea and you're getting all these no's. The no's don't mean it's not a good idea. They only mean that maybe the universe isn't quite ready for it yet, or and so you got to just give yourself permission to allow it to percolate and develop and do that sort of thing. Sara, what do you think about this?
I'm just thinking about what you're saying, and I think, is it the ego's insecurity that makes you think the why bother?
Mm-hmm.
Because you know why you bother, because you care. And so, yes, there are times when organizing mind, body, spirit fairs, and as didn't matter how much advertising you did, not that many people come through the door. And you think, why bother? But look at the lives you touched in that day. Just
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't hundreds doesn't mean that you shouldn't have been there and you shouldn't have touched the lives you touched that day, whether it was
Right.
yourself or one of the others. Doing our programs, there are times when I don't look at the numbers because my reaction is, it's recorded, it goes up there, and it will be found when it is right for those individuals. And the idea is right for us at that point in time, but maybe it's not right for the other individuals at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So as you said, it's that take a step back, but doesn't mean let go of it. It means let it have a little bit of its life of its own. You've put that energy out there
Mm-hmm.
because you've spoken to others and nothing appears to be happening. But you don't know what's happening underneath. But then there's also the thing, isn't there? Tell God your plans if you want to make him laugh, or something like that. But we have to be proactive if there's something we'd like to make happen. But as you said, David, sometimes we get the initial idea, but that's not exactly where we're meant to be going.
Right.
It's open to the fact that you're diverted off. You may come back to the original idea, but it was only put there to get you to where you actually really require to go. So it's having an understanding that the universe has its own agenda.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think, wasn't it John Lennon who wrote that song? He said something like, "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans." I think that was a line in one of his songs, and it was a song about his son Julian. I think
Mhm.
it was a beautiful song. or Beautiful Boy, I think it's called. That's the name of the song. Anyway, Ilene, what do you want to say about this?
Well, I have lots to say about this. It's happened, gone under the bridge already. My perception is that we all are here on the earth, which is a big school, and a big part of our being here is to figure out what's important for us to focus on, what's important for us to do. And I think one thing that I've been thinking about preparing for this program is that I think you have to know yourself in order to be able to stick to things sometimes and or to release them, because as been alluded to, sometimes the timing isn't right. The idea is right, but the timing isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And to when you know yourself, you go, well, this is important to me, and it doesn't, there's blockages happening, so now must not be the right time, let me back off. And so I don't find myself saying why bother. I say let me back off, let me wait, let's see what happens with this. And Scott, you mentioned another thing that I think is tied in here, and that was the word should. And as you guys know, because I've been talking about it for a while, I think we've all been taught in many ways to live from the outside in. And to me, a should is outside in. This is what somebody else has the idea of what's right for me, or I'm trying to figure out what their idea is. And I would replace the word should with want. What do I want to do? And that ties in then with imposter syndrome that a lot of people are talking about, women in particular are talking about these days. My perception is that when we get a brilliant idea, when we get something that we want to do that makes sense to us, that's inspired. That's like somebody said, here's something you could do that you would love doing. Get going on it when you're ready. And because we don't know ourselves, or because we don't love ourselves, or because we're not willing to stand behind ourselves, we start questioning. And then if we run into a little bit of resistance, we go, oh, why bother? This is too much. And then we miss this wonderful opportunity. In your book that you put out, Reese, this Tree of Life book, that was you. At what point did you say, why bother with that book? You
Well,
didn't, did you?
yeah, I think I did, but it was in the early stages.
Uh-huh.
It was in the early stages. Once I got going on it and I realized that this was important stuff to get out there, I just kept going.
Right.
But you
So
see, there was a difference in that project, and this is something I'd like to bring attention to.
okay.
Sometimes you have an idea that really doesn't involve anybody else. You could just go ahead and do it, and then let it have whatever impact it's going to have when the time comes.
Mhm.
In this case, I had already written a lot of this book, and I thought there's something missing here, and I can't quite figure out what it is. But eventually, it dawned on me, and I wanted to get the input from people like you. So I invited 13 people to contribute these guest expert vignettes. And that took a while because some said yes, some said no, and some said yes and then didn't show up. I mean, you have that problem with life. It's just what happens. Um, but as soon as I got the first one, that first guest expert vignette, I knew this was the right thing to do, and I wasn't going to stop, no matter how many people said no to me. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, a little bit of momentum can make a big difference, right? But like I think Scott has said this, Ilene has said this, and Sara too. You've got to believe in the truth of who you are, and then just bring that forth. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything, honestly. And this
Right.
is why I like that when you brought up the word should. To me, that's something that happens in my ego mind all the time. Oh, you should be doing this. You should be doing that. You should. I get should upon. And it's if I listen to that, it's very tiring, and I do then kind of feel that why bother energy showing up. But if I don't listen to it, or if I just say thank you for your input, I could do that, but I don't necessarily choose to do that. You see, and so I change my words around all the time. But thank you so much, Ilene. By the way, I just want to say thank you to the folks who are here on the live program. If you have comments or questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer those as quickly as we can. One thing that occurs to me when that question, why bother, comes up, it's usually framed in the whiny voice of my ego mind that's trying to get me to stop doing something. One thing that I have noticed is if I pause and I say, that's a great question. Why should I bother? Why should I put this much energy into this? And if I take the whiny part out of the question and just look at it from a curiosity point of view, things start to take a different approach. Scott, what happens when you reframe the question in that way?
Words are spells. I was told that a long time ago, and I didn't really fully understand that. But the words that we put out there, and especially self-talk, oh my gosh, self-talk, will change your perspective, change how you do it. And early in life, I had shoulds. My parents put a lot of shoulds on me. You should do that, and you should do this, and then family comes along, and the responsibilities and everything else comes along, and you're carrying this incredible weight on your shoulders, all those shoulds. And it wasn't until later in my life that I was able to relax all of that, take all the shoulds off, and you know how much lighter you feel when you take all that weight off? It's absolutely amazing. But it's that self-talk and the perspective. Can I do it? Yes. Do I want to do it? Is this something I want to put my energy into? And does it align with who I really am? And we all have to answer those questions of, who am I? What do I really want to give back in life? And is it worthwhile for me? So yes.
Yeah. I was just going to say, when you had your hands up there, it just occurred to me, the first 6 letters of the word shoulder is should.
Yep.
I never really realized that before, but it's obvious now. And so, that's what happens when you put all these shoulds on yourself. That's where you end up carrying them, and that's a huge amount of stress.
You know that our shoulds are at the basis of us getting angry also. And we think this should happen and it doesn't, we get angry. We think that should not happen and it does, we get angry. Right. And to realize that the shoulds come from outside of us in the first place, or we're carrying them around in our subconscious mind and don't even know what they are until anger comes up and says, take a look at this. You've got a should going here that it's time to change.
That's right. Yeah. I just noticed that Wendy came back. She said, I made it back. I lost connection. Bought both books between glitches with an internet. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for buying those books. I really do hope you enjoy them and get a lot of value out of them. And please, whatever you do, leave a review on Amazon after you've had a chance to read them, because those reviews really help to spread the word. Anyway,
with the 5-star notification, okay? I'll put that in. You're not asking for it, David.
I prefer people to just be honest and true. If 5 stars is in your heart, I'd be glad to accept it.
That's beautiful.
Sarah, did you want to add something more about this? Transforming the why bother into why bother? Why should I bother?
Actually, what came to me when you were speaking was remove the question mark and put the word I in between the two. Why I bother.
Beautiful. I love that. Why I bother.
Yeah.
And so say a little bit more about that. What does that mean for you?
Well, basically, to me, it's just like, rather, I'm a great one for looking at something that I feel I'm doing and asking and thinking, why me? And then why not me? Mm-hmm. So I think this is the same thing. It's why bother? Why I bother? I bother because I care. I bother because it feels right to do this.
Yeah.
I bother because I bother doing this because I connect with so many amazing people.
Yeah.
There are so find the reasons for why you bother.
Mm-hmm.
The reasons that speak to you, the reasons that take that negative energy out of it. That's why I bother.
You know, and as you're saying that, I noticed there's like a whole shift in energy on the statement too, and the word bother seems to lose its
Yeah.
negative charge, right? And in fact, it becomes a case of when I understand my real reasons, my real motivation, my inspiration for doing something, it's no bother at all. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. I think I want to put something in here too, um, and it's just gone out of my head. Um, um, the okay, somebody else take it. It went. It'll come back later.
It'll come back when it matters. Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
it
Well,
was
you know,
brilliant.
I think
No doubt.
really what we've been talking about here is making the shift from the ego mind back into the soul, and that's what this program's all about. It's empowering our soul to be more out front and in charge in our lives. And maybe it's not that we want to get rid of the ego mind or anything like that. The ego mind is very useful for its own limited set of purposes. All right. And one of the purpose in particular is to help us navigate our way through this physical world. So imagine trying to do that without an ego mind. It might be pretty hard. But my point is that what we're doing is we're shifting the energy away from that chit chat, nonstop, yappy ego mind, and trying to bring ourselves back here into our heart and soul, into the essence of who we really are. And when we get there, the why bother shifts automatically. And I think that's what Sara was really talking. I love the way you reframed that. Why I bother. That is, it's brilliant.
And I
Okay,
don't
I
know
got
where it came from.
Oh, it came through you, so I'm
Through
giving
you.
it to you. Okay.
I got it back now. I can share with you.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
The taking off from the why I bother. For me, I bother because I have had the privilege of learning things in my lifetime that have transformed the person I was, with the shoulds and the traumas and the whatever, into a person who enjoys life. And I get so excited about wanting to share what I have learned. And I think when we do focus on who we are and focus on I think everybody has this capacity. It's not, you don't have to be a therapist or a channel or a Reiki master or any of those things. I think we all have this, that there are things that we learn, things that we know, things that make us feel good that we want to share. And those are the bother things, the things we might say, why bother? Um, because we bother because we're excited about the life we're living and want to share that.
Yeah, right. Beautiful. Scott, I noticed you.
When
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
she really triggered. Eileen, you have a habit of triggering a lot of thoughts. You do that very well, by the way. So I'm thinking about early in my life, and I was going through really tough times, and my wife was going through chemotherapy. My youngest daughter was severely ill, and I I didn't have an answer to why all this was happening. And I looked up, and at one point in my life it got so bad I said, why am I bothering? Why bother do this? And I was holding on desperately to make sure that my wife made it through and that my daughter was in best quality of life and all of that. And I wanted to say, why bother? I'm taking this why bother to another level. And that is, why bother staying here? What do I have to add to my life? What, can life get any worse than it is already for me? And the answer that came back was, what would life be without you here? For my daughters, for my wife, for my family, and all the way down. And what is it that I can contribute? And that's when I was in survival mode. And I'm sure there are people out there that get to that point in their life where they question, why bother staying around? Why am I even here? And I have to say that no matter where you are in this life, it's going to change. Change is inevitable. It can get worse. Never ask the question of, hey, can't get any worse, can it? Yeah, yeah. God will show you how. However, however, your circumstances, relationships, everything will change as well as your perspective. And it's when you change your perspective within you that life then starts to change. When you just take one click toward positivity, toward understanding, toward clarity, things look slightly different. And then the ego mind, the voice that you hear, changes just slightly. And maybe it's not so negative, and maybe it's not so judgmental, and maybe it gets a little better each and every day. These changes don't happen overnight. The work that these other three people on this panel have done are incredible, and they have been going ongoing for decades, which makes them who they are, their experiences now. But if someone is listening and is in trouble, is in that dark place, things will change. Not always how we expect, maybe not always for the better, but they will change. And you being here is going to be able to do that, be that change. And then when you get to the point in your life where we are, where there is a generosity of spirit that they want to share their experiences so that everyone can be better. And that's why I bother doing this, because of meeting people like this on this panel, but also helping anybody that needs to hear it at that time.
Yeah, beautiful. You know, as you were speaking, I had an image of George Bailey come into my mind. Now, those of you may not know necessarily who George Bailey is, but if I mention the name of a movie, It's a Wonderful Life, all of a sudden you'll have that image in your head. And George Bailey had exactly that problem. He reached a point where his life seemed so bad in his mind that he was ready to jump off a bridge and commit suicide. And it was the angel. What was that angel's name? I can't remember the angel's name, but he a cute little guy, you know, with the fuzzy eyebrows and trying to get his Clarence, right? Clarence. And Clarence jumps in the water ahead of him, and then George wants to save his life. And the whole thing is so beautiful because the story is all about Clarence helping George to understand how many people he's touched over the course of his life. And we just don't realize it. No, none of us ever think about that, you know? It's so maybe it's time for all of us to just sit down and meditate and say, I wonder, how many people have I actually touched in my life? How many people have I interacted with in my life? And the number has got to be in the tens of thousands, maybe in the millions, and you don't even realize it. You know, I'm obviously in the case of that movie, they were referring only to the close family members who were touched, and all of them, you know, had positive experiences as a result of George Bailey. But even beyond that, we all have ripples that go way beyond our immediate circles of influence. And so our presence here has an impact, and it's important. You know, your presence is important here. You know, you don't have to be the most popular person in the world. You don't have to be the richest. You don't have to have, you know, your name all over the newspapers or whatever. You can be a very quiet hero, just walking down the street, and you do one little thing in your entire life, and that is enough to make a huge difference.
You know, yesterday I was talking with my brilliant son, who's about 50 years old now, and he was saying that he'd been thinking about the fact that the world is created for each one of us, that the world would not be the same were I not here, because the cast of characters that forms around me is unique to me as it is to each of you. And I found that, and I've been kind of thinking about that, we can feel very alone and like it's not a point. One of the things I found as a therapist is that let me just tell you briefly a story. I worked with an 18-year-old girl, young woman, many, many years ago, who in the first session of the therapy confided to me that she was so depressed she carried a razor blade around in her wallet so she could kill herself at any time if she got too depressed. And I told her, listen, you're going to waste your time and money. I'm going to waste my time if you have that option open to you while we're doing therapy. So will you please stop doing that? Throw that away. And she did during the therapy session. And she didn't work with me very long. I don't think she came more than 4 or 5 sessions. And then about 6 months later, I ran into her on the street. And she was happy. And she told me that she was working as a dishwasher in a nursing home. She was dating another dishwasher in that nursing home, and she was taking a motorcycle maintenance course. And that was shocking to me, those things together. And what I realized was that by throwing the razor blade away, she made at least a temporary decision that she was going to stay here on the earth. And as soon as we make that decision, then we literally want to get our hands dirty. We're here. And as a therapist, I often, if I run into somebody who's iffy about whether, or even if their life is not working well, the why bother stage, it's because they haven't made the decision, yes, I'm going to stay for this lifetime. And I ask them then, will you make that decision? Are you ready to do it?
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful story. Thank you, Ilene.
Mm-hmm.
Sara, what did you have? I can see you just getting excited about something. So
I'm going to ask everybody here if they're a gambler.
yes.
Are you a gambler? But are you a gambler on your gut being wrong?
Sometimes.
And you're more prepared to listen to your ego mind's negativity or listen to the guidance of your gut, your heart, your soul, whatever you want to refer to it. Because that's what to me, that's what we're talking about here with the why bother. That's gambling on the ego mind saying, stop doing it. I like to think that I'm not a gambler, not in that respect anyway. I occasionally do the lottery. We are gambling with our life when we over listen to the ego mind. We've given plenty of reasons, I think, here why we should take that question, why bother, and turn it round in any way that feels right to you. But if you find yourself in that place, maybe the question is, why am I finding myself in this place? Questioning yourself, not with the why bother, but what's going on? What's deeper? And what is my motivation for keep going? Or taking the pause, as we've said, sort of taking a break. Maybe it needs to be reformulated so that we can do, are we prepared to open to the heart?
Yeah.
And let the mind, not the monkey mind, but let the mind and the heart work together. Because I believe there's more than 2 aspects to our mind, but we've got that negative aspect and that proactive aspect of our mind, of supporting us to help make the heart choice happen.
Yeah, beautiful. I've found that sometimes like reframes are very powerful. That's been my experience. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago is that the question why often has built-in judgments, let's say. Why are you doing this? As if what I'm doing is wrong, right? What I have tried to do now, when I hear that question in my mind, I try to reframe it like immediately. How is this behavior serving me? Rather than why am I doing this? How is it serving me? Even if it's really not serving me, or and maybe that's the purpose of the question. Well, it's like you engage in a certain behavior because you're getting something out of it. It's really that simple. There's very few behaviors, I think, that are completely autonomous, that you have no control over. But there are some, of course, and with addiction and stuff like that, different kinds of chemical imbalances, that sort of thing, those can have an effect on your decision-making ability. But even so, if you are aware of it, you can do something about it. So the first question really is, what's going on? What's happening here? Let me get clarity about what really is here now. Then let me accept it for what it is, instead of putting a spin on it and trying to make up a story about it and trying to maybe push it away. Simply say, okay, it's here. It's here. Now what? How do I show up in relation to that thing? Who am I in relation to that? You see? And then I can start thinking about the choices I can make about how I want to deal with it and all that stuff. But really, it all boils down to that first point, which is awareness, right? And so the reason I switch the questions around is because I want to try and get myself out of judgment as much as possible, so I can simply observe what is and just simply accept it for what it is. And that I find that helpful. Other people, go ahead, ask questions, ask why if that serves you,
I think what fits there is something I discovered a long time ago, which is that most of us have been taught to focus on the problem, what's going wrong, what the problem is. And what happens is when we focus our attention on anything, it feeds it energy and it grows. So the problem grows. And the phrase that I created years ago that I follow is to pay attention not to what you want to overcome, but to what you want to become. And when you're focusing on where you want to go, it's far less likely you're going to ask, why bother? Because you don't want to go here. I want to go here. So how do I do that?
Right. Yeah. Scott.
So Powerball is $1 billion right now. So and it's not until it reaches that point that I take my $10 and I take some tickets. So because I consider, I've always heard the joke, he asked God, I want to win the lottery. Lottery comes, he doesn't win. Lottery, he does this 5 times. Finally, he goes, God, why can't I win the lottery? And all of a sudden, he hears his voice. And he says, Joe, you have to play the lottery. So you have to participate in life. You have to participate in everything we do. You talk about that gambling with it, and every time I think I can outthink my gut, my instinct, that little voice that says what's right and wrong, time I think I can go around it, through it, over it, and kind of skirt the law, if you will, it always comes back to haunt me, because it all comes back. And being that consciousness, David, you mentioned it a number of times, in that presence, that consciousness, that awareness. And it seems, does not it seem like everything we talk about, no matter the subject in our discussions, that presence, being present in our decisions, is what it's what it's all about. That just being aware.
Right.
When I'm in the middle of eating hot fudge sundae, I'm really enjoying it. It may not be good for me, but I'm enjoying the heck out of it, and it's a decision and a choice that I made. And you're right. There's always a reason for the decisions we make, David. We walk through it there's always there's got to be something at the end of it in order to make that decision. And I hope that anybody listening to this makes the decision to continue listening to these discussions, because they are so worthwhile. And we have so much fun doing this.
Right.
You do.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think you're right about, the whole idea about, well, you mentioned this idea of hot fudge sundae. It may not be good for me. Well, but it is good for you in that moment, because it is serving to make you, it's bringing you some enjoyment. It's bringing you some pleasure. And the only negativity about it is that ego mind saying, oh, you shouldn't be eating this. You shouldn't be eating this. It's not good for you. Stop it. I'm going to eat it anyway. Thank you very much. And look, I'm not going to suggest that you make a habit out of eating hot fudge sundaes 24 hours a day or something. But having a hot fudge sundae every once in a while is not bad for you, any more than extra cup of coffee here and there. So yeah, let's just stop it, shall we? Let's just enjoy our lives. Let's just go and make some choices. I see, Sara, you added a little comment in there. It says, we are all gamblers in our own ways within our lives. I agree with that 100%. I mean, just getting out of bed in the morning could be a gamble.
David, I heard you saying, you will not take my hot fudge sundae from me.
Well, that's not what I said, but I hear that's what you heard.
Well, maybe it was my voice inside talking to me.
Yeah, right.
Maybe more to the point is, a little of what you fancy does you good, because we're here to have a human experience.
Sure.
And that goes for absolutely everything.
Yeah, but I think you can suffer from too much moderation too.
Yeah, you can definitely suffer from the excess.
Well, excess moderation. There you go. That's what I. Yeah, it's fascinating. So, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about how can we get more connected to our deeper purpose for being. When this question comes up, why bother? Now, you've kind of suggested it, Sara, by adding why I bother, and that really helps. So let's talk a little bit about deepening our connection to our spiritual purpose for being, because that's really what I think is the ultimate why of our lives, right? Pregnant pause.
Well, I've been breaking in all the time, so I was giving you guys a chance, but too late now. I think, Sara, what you're talking about and what we're all talking about is we need to know ourselves, and part of knowing ourselves is loving ourselves. And I think in many ways, the setup of life takes that self-love away from us, which I've mentioned on this show before, where we run into things and we arrive full of love, no question about whether we're going to get our parents up in the middle of the night if we need something, um, and then we lose it over time. And what is the universe all about? The universe is all about love, and if we're not full of love, if we're not filling our own selves with love and asking when my husband was dying of cancer 10 years ago, and I would get irritated with him because he was, holding on. Sometimes I would get irritated with him. I would take the dog for a walk and go, okay, what's the most loving way that we can go through this? What is intending the love? And then it brought me back from the why am I bothering to go through all of this for 6 months here. I didn't know how long it was going to be at that time. Why am I doing this? I was doing it for love, but the things that would come up would tend to get in the way of me practicing that love. And so when I could bring myself back and say, okay, let's focus on love, pay attention to what you want to become, not to what you want to overcome.
Yeah, beautiful.
I think that's a key.
Well, isn't it, I mean, I've heard people say that fear and love are polar opposites. And my belief is that fear really is this idea that I can somehow be separated from love, that somehow love is away from me somewhere. I have to go out there to find it. And the reality is that love is always here because, hey, I hate to tell you this, I am love. And so are you. We are all love. And so the fear is just a false idea of separation from that love. You know? So if you can just simply, like I said, anytime your ego mind is active, it's almost always acting from a place of fear. And when it's doing that, it's kind of holding you back. You're going to feel yourself tightening up. You're going to feel those physical manifestations of the presence of the ego mind. You have a choice at that point to say, am I going to just allow this to keep going? And maybe this is when you pause, you say, oh, I see what's going on. My ego mind's got control of me at the moment. And now what I like to do at this point is I take a pause. I say, okay, what is it you want me to hear that I'm not paying attention to?
Nice.
And then my ego mind might say something, you should be doing this or whatever. I said, thank you so much for that suggestion. What's your reason? How does that serve you? If I do that, how does that help you? Well, it makes me more relaxed, however my ego mind responds. You see, what happens is just by listening without judgment and trying to understand what the ego mind's doing, I cause it to quiet down on its own. And then when it quiets down, the fear goes away and I'm reconnected to love. It's really quite simple. And anybody can do it. Now, do I always do it? No, of course not. Sometimes I get caught up in my ego mind and I'm so busy in enjoying the drama that comes with it, that I say, to hell with the soul for a while. I'm going to play around up here for a bit. And I think we all do that. The question is, how long are you going to do that? How long are you going to continue doing that? And that's something that we all have an opportunity to look at. We all have the opportunity to decide to change that, right? And again,
but why bother?
Exactly. It comes down. Well, that's a great question, because why bother? Because I'm really enjoying it. And there's a part of us that does enjoy the negativity, And I think part of that has to do with when I get out of the negativity and back into the positivity, all of a sudden I realize how much I prefer it over here. But sometimes I got to remind myself, And so I give myself permission to jump into the bucket of ice cream or whatever and do something that's not good for me. Anyway,
So,
Sara, sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Sara.
Yeah, a suggestion. Sort of almost like a sort of a short meditative exercise for people. I'm not going to actually physically do it. I'm just going to sort of make the suggestion. But find something that works for you. Give yourself a little bit of space, a little bit of peace and time. And find yourself on the edge of your heart and dive into it. Just dive into your heart and find yourself in a space, whatever that might be for you, and invite in your higher self, your guides, your guardians, whoever. And you can talk it through with them. If you require someone to talk to, if you can't find somebody out here, because we should be listening to ourselves. So take a deep dive into our hearts. For me, our heart is our connection to our soul, which is our connection to all that is.
Right.
Because our comfort zone, what is it they say? Nothing grows in your comfort zone. So yes, you feel comfortable at times in that negative space in your head. And then you get to this point, we have to have both, the light, the dark, the heat and the cold, to be able to see the two sides. So being in that negative space and then finding ourselves back in that peace, we can feel the peace of that. We can feel the joy of that. And we're here to feel joy, to have fun, to have a good laugh. We're here for all of that, but we're here for the other side of it as well, so that we know the joy, the love, the peace. So our heart is a great place to dive into.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought, a suggestion for folks.
No, I love it. Scott, you were chomping at the bit there. Go, buddy. Want to hear you.
Wow, I love that picture of diving into your heart.
Yeah.
You know, Eileen said that everything we look for everything externally, and everything should come from internally. When I deal with homeopathic practitioner that I deal with, she always says healing comes from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
When you can listen to your heart, when you can feel your heart, when you can feel that compassion, when you can feel that space within you that is love, we stop chasing it. When we have this aspect of ourselves, we don't have to look for it outside of ourselves. It is there. In raising my daughters, I wanted them to be independent, physically, fiscally, emotionally, spiritually, in every way, because I wanted them to be whole so that when they chose a partner, they could be a partner truly, to be able to match somebody without having to grasp and hold and look outside themselves for unrequited love, whatever that is, and to be able to have that and hold that. Did they listen? Well, not so much, but anyway, it's a nice thought, but I wanted to teach them that they were whole unto themselves, and so that when they, in walking through life, they could give of themselves and be able to do it willingly.
Right.
Scott, I learned a definition of marriage one time. It's when one whole complete unit and another whole complete unit join together and form a unity.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I
that's
love that.
nice. Yeah.
1 + 1 = 3, right?
Or 4 or 5, depending on how many kids you have. So we're getting close to the top of the hour here, and I know, Sara, you got to get going, but I wanted to give you a chance to close us out first. Do you want to share some light language today?
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. It's getting dark here because apparently we've got an eclipse about to start. Okay. Kwina tatana kache etiama kato etiana chayama. E kotoro me kache ina. Ist toikana kachayana katetia. Loeche na ka ke teanai. Sho ese a astroiki. She oromo kotoromo kachia na katayane anata. So I na ta keche. Tintura kanchaya te mata. Tuntaya kecha te manakata. Namaste.
Beautiful. There's something very rhythmic and lyrical about that. I might do a recording of you and turn it into some kind of trance music or something.
We can do that. I'm going to say cheerio and see you again soon, folks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, Sara.
Bye-bye. So, Eileen, would you like to say some final words before we close out?
You know, thinking about this program, I was thinking about I don't find myself saying why bother much anymore. Certainly I have in my lifetime. And it's because I operate on the basis of choice. If I want to do something different, if something isn't feeling good to me or whatever, I go, okay, you're the person who's in charge here. What choice do you want to make? I make the choice, and I can make a choice on an experimental basis too. Let me make this for the next 3 weeks. If I don't like it, I can always change back.
Exactly.
So I think choice is really key way of moving away from the why bother.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Scott, how would you like to close us out?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that. When we take the shoulds off, right? And it allows more choices. And when we have choices, we have freedom. When we have freedom, anything is possible. We can change the way we live, the way we see things, our perspective, how we love. It changes everything. So finding ourselves is that choice. And I encourage everybody to really ask the questions. Why
Right.
bother? You'll be surprised at what the answers come back for.
Yeah, I think it's really important. One thing that can never be taken away from us. Well, there's actually two things. The truth of who you really are can never be taken away from you. But I also think that in any given moment, you always have a choice about how you're going to respond, react, show up in any given situation. It may sometimes seem like you have no choice, but really, yeah, you do. You always have a choice. So give yourself permission to examine what the options are in any given moment, and then choose from a place of authenticity about who you really are. Is this choice truly aligned with who I am? Is this choice going to express the best part of me going forward? That's what I recommend as far as choice is concerned. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank you folks for being on the live session and for putting your thoughts into the chat. And yeah, it's been pretty active today. That's really awesome. I'm glad to see that. And I just want to remind you all that this episode and every other episode of this program are available on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. So you can go check them out there and leave your comments, questions, and of course you can always subscribe and like and everything on my YouTube channel as well. That's always a great help. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to wish you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. And we'll see you all next time on Soul Empowerment. Bye-bye.